Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and I saw an interesting story, an article that I thought you guys would enjoy. The article is from DNYUZ, and it's titled Lost Passwords Lock Millionaires Out of Their Bitcoin Fortunes. Now, for those of you guys who have been into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for a number of years, we've all heard these famous stories, right? We heard about the guy who spent what would have been like $100 million worth of Bitcoin on a pizza. There was another story years back. I think it was a British web designer or something like that who had thousands and thousands of Bitcoins on a hard drive or a hardware wallet and wound up throwing it out. I think he actually wound up like searching the garbage dump trying to find this hardware wallet or this zip drive that had his Bitcoins on it. We've heard a lot of these stories over the years, and this is another one of those articles. Obviously, whenever crypto is surging, we see a lot of crypto stories and stories of lost Bitcoin and lost cryptocurrency in the news, and this is another one of those stories. This story, or this article, covers a couple different individuals. I think one guy lost, or no, I'm sorry, he didn't lose. He had like a specially encrypted zip drive that you have 10 attempts to type in the password, and if it's typed in wrong 10 times, you are forever locked out of this encryption device. And I think he's only got a couple tries left, but he's got something like $200 million, $220 million, something like that on this zip drive, and he can't access it. So I thought this would be a fun article to read. And also I thought it'd be a good discussion to open up about kind of OPSEC and security and storing your cryptocurrency. I think we all know the phrase or the term, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Oftentimes this is used to talk about, like, if you trust your Bitcoin to an exchange, if you let your Bitcoin sit on an exchange and you don't control the keys, it's not your Bitcoin. But it also means that if you lose your keys, you also don't have access to your Bitcoin. And this has been a conversation that's raged on for a long time. A lot of people, there's kind of two arguments. It's not smart to leave your money on an exchange because the exchange could go under, as we've seen a number of exchanges do. The exchange could get hacked. Your account could get hacked. And then there's another argument that for a lot of people new to cryptocurrency, the chances of an exchange going under or the chances of your account getting hacked, assuming you take even the smallest bit of OPSEC, is probably a lot lower than the chances of you doing something stupid and losing your recovery phrase or losing your device and your recovery phrase. And you remember years ago, I used to tell a lot of new Bitcoin users, like, look, it's really not great to leave your money sitting on an exchange, but at the same time, you're new to this and you're kind of an idiot, and the chances of you losing your Bitcoin on your own trying to manage your own Bitcoin is probably a lot greater than if you just left your cryptocurrency sitting on Coinbase. And, I've kind of changed my stance on it. I'm not going to go into too much in the way of details, but I actually experienced a Coinbase hack back in the fall. I still haven't been able to gain access to my account. Fortunately, there was not a lot of money on there. And even though I know you shouldn't keep money on exchanges, there was a period of time when I was waiting to cash out some Bitcoin, and I had a pretty significant amount of money sitting on Coinbase, and I actually happened to move it out, or I actually happened to sell it and move the money out to my bank account shortly after that. That was kind of an eye-opener for me. I thought something like that would never happen to me. It did wind up happening to me. It was a nightmare. And even though I'm kind of kicking myself for selling some of those Bitcoins at a pretty low price, looking at where Bitcoin's price is today, the one saving grace, or the thing that makes me feel a little bit better, is had I left those coins sitting on Coinbase, some fucking hacker would have stolen them. So, I guess it's a good thing. At least I got some money out of it. But let's dive into this article. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about, what's the safest or the most secure way to store your cryptocurrency. I think a lot of people like paper wallets. I feel pretty safe and secure with a Trezor. Let me know what your guys' preferred way to store your cryptocurrency safely is. And then also think about this from the perspective of a newbie. Imagine your mom or dad is getting into Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Would you trust them to deal with paper wallets? Would you trust them with a Trezor? How would you give advice to your mom or dad who's not very tech savvy in terms of how to store their Bitcoin or their cryptocurrency? Without further ado, let's get into this article. Stephen Thomas, a German-born programmer living in San Francisco, has 2 guesses left to figure out a password that is worth, as of this week, about $220 million. The password will let him unlock a small hard drive known as an iron key, which contains the private keys to a digital wallet that holds 7,002 Bitcoins. Well, the price of Bitcoin dropped sharply on Monday. It's still up more than 50% from a month ago when it passed its previous all-time high of around $20,000. The problem is that Mr. Thomas years ago lost the paper where he wrote down the password for his iron key, which gives users 10 guesses before it seizes up and encrypts the contents forever. He has since tried 8 of his most commonly used password formulations to no avail. I would just lay in bed and think about it, Mr. Thomas said. Then I would go to the computer with some new technology, with some new strategy, and it wouldn't work, and I would be desperate again. I'd love to hear some stories from you guys. Have any of you guys locked yourself out of a Bitcoin wallet? Or, were any of you guys involved in Bitcoin back when it was worth nothing, and you still had an old laptop laying around, but like you couldn't figure out the password to access your Electrum wallet or something like that? I remember years ago going through some old laptops, trying to scrape some Bitcoin off of there, trying to remember passwords to locked files or wallets. Way back in the day, I used to order some stuff off some of the dark websites, and it was kind of funny, if you transferred $50 over to a site to buy some weed gummies, and you only wound up spending $43, and you got $7 worth of Bitcoin sitting on that platform, it almost wasn't worth transferring it off with Bitcoin fees and everything. It's like, I might as well just leave it on there. I remember a couple years ago, I went through a bunch of like dark websites and found like what at one time was scraps or dollars and change that actually wound up being worth about $1,800 or something like that. So I think we all have these stories of trying to access small amounts of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies that we've either kind of forgotten about or stopped caring about. So I'd love to hear if you guys have any funny stories with that. Moving back to the article, Bitcoin, which has been on an extraordinary and volatile 8-month run, has made a lot of its holders very rich in a short period of time. Even as the coronavirus pandemic has ravaged the world economy, but the cryptocurrency's unusual nature has also meant that there are many people who are locked out of their Bitcoin fortunes as a result of lost or forgotten keys. They have been forced to watch, helpless as the price has risen and fallen dramatically, unable to cash in on their digital wealth. And here's something. So, I meant to kind of talk about this a little bit earlier. When it comes to OPSEC, take some normal precautions. But, just from seeing people talk on Reddit or talk on forums, you'd have some people who are wanting to like memorize their keys. Some people were writing down their private seed on one piece of paper, but then they were tearing that one piece of paper into 3 pieces so that the whole recovery seed wasn't on the same piece of paper, and they're like hiding each piece of paper in different locations. I'm all for people taking some security measures, but at some point you're going to take so many measures that you fucking trick yourself and you wind up locking yourself out of your crypto. I mean, if you write your recovery seed on 2 pieces of paper and you put one under a floorboard in your house and another one under the floorboard of your parents' house, like I think that's pretty safe. The chances of somebody tearing up your floorboard or your parents' floorboard, finding this seed and recovering your Bitcoin are next to none. Whereas when you're tearing your recovery seed into 23 different pieces of paper and hiding these all over the place, the chances of you losing one of those pieces of paper is probably a lot higher. So security is good. Take some security measures, but don't go overboard to the point that you wind up locking yourself out of your own cryptocurrency. Of the existing 18.5 million Bitcoin, around 20%, currently worth around 140 billion, appears to be lost or otherwise stranded in wallets, according to the cryptocurrency data firm Chain Analysis. Wallet Recovery Services, a Bitcoin business that helps people find lost digital keys, said it has gotten 70 requests a day from people who want help recovering their riches, 3 times the number of a month ago. Bitcoin owners who are locked out of their wallets speak of endless days and nights of frustration as they have tried to access their fortunes. Many have owned coins since the Bitcoin's early days of a decade ago when no one had confidence that the tokens would be worth anything. Through the years, I would say I have spent hundreds of hours trying to get back into these wallets, said Brad Yassar, an entrepreneur in Los Angeles who has a few desktop computers that contain thousands of Bitcoin he created or mined during the early days of the technology. Well, those Bitcoin are now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He lost his passwords many years ago and has put the hard drives containing them in a vacuum-sealed bags out of sight. I don't want to be reminded every day that what I have now is a fraction of what I could have that I lost, he said. The dilemma is a stark reminder of Bitcoin's unusual technological underpinnings, which set it apart from normal money and gives it some of its most vaunted and riskiest qualities. With traditional bank accounts and online wallets, banks like Wells Fargo and other financial companies like PayPal can provide people their passwords to their accounts or reset lost passwords, but Bitcoin has no company to provide or store passwords. The virtual currency's creator, a shadowy figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto, has said that Bitcoin's central idea was how to allow anyone in the world to open a digital bank account and hold money in a way that no government could prevent or regulate. This is made possible by the structure of Bitcoin, which is governed by a network of computers that agreed to follow software containing all the rules for the cryptocurrency. The software includes a complex algorithm that makes it possible to create an address and associate private keys, which is known only by the person who created the wallet. The software also allows the Bitcoin network to confirm the accuracy of the password to allow transactions without seeing or knowing the password itself. In short, the system makes it possible for anyone to create a Bitcoin wallet without having to register with a financial institution or go through any sort of identity check. That has made Bitcoin popular with criminals, of course, the criminal narrative, right? Who can use money without revealing their identity. Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous. It's not anonymous. Bitcoin is not a currency for criminals. Monero would be a better currency for criminals. But Bitcoin still kind of maintains that bad reputation of this dark, shadowy currency from the early days. It has attracted people in countries like China and Venezuela, where authoritarian governments are known for raiding or shutting down traditional bank accounts. But the structure of this system did not account for just how bad people can be for remembering and securing their passwords. Even sophisticated investors have been completely incapable of doing any kind of management of private keys, said Diogo Monica, the co-founder of a startup called Anchorage, which helps companies handle cryptocurrency security. Mr. Monica started the company in 2017 after helping a hedge fund regain access to one of its Bitcoin wallets. Mr. Thomas, the programmer, said he was drawn to Bitcoin particularly because it was outside of the control of a country or a company. In 2011, when he was living in Switzerland, he was given the 7,002 Bitcoins by an early Bitcoin fanatic as a reward for making an animated video, What is Bitcoin?, which introduced many people to the technology. That year, he lost the digital keys to the wallet holding the Bitcoin. Since then, as Bitcoin's value has soared and fallen, he could not get his hands on the money. Mr. Thomas has soured on the idea that people should be their own banks and hold their own money. This whole idea of being your own bank, let me put it this way. Do you make your own shoes, he said. The reason we have banks is that we don't want to deal with all those things that the banks do. So it sounds like this guy is just an idiot and is unorganized and is incapable of managing his own money, but that doesn't necessarily mean that other people can't do it. And you also have to factor in, this guy placed very little value on these Bitcoins when he got them. Like, if you gave me a couple pieces of hard candy and say, hey, you want some candy? And I put them in my pocket, there's really no value to that candy, so I'm probably not going to keep tabs on it. But if you gave me $1 million, you better believe I'm going to keep track of that $1 million. So I think at least in his case and in a lot of people's cases, it's less that people can't manage their own money, although I think plenty of people have proven that they can't manage their own money. But I think it's less about that, and a lot of these stories are people who in the early days of Bitcoin got a lot of Bitcoin, didn't really place a lot of value on it, and therefore didn't really take the time or effort to secure it or store passwords securely. And then years later, when it's worth all this money, well, you didn't care about it before, so now you don't really remember it. But moving on, some have outsourced the work of holding Bitcoin to startups and exchanges that secure the private keys to people's stashes of the virtual currency. But I got to bring up that point that we started this video with. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin, as Andres Antonopoulos is kind of famous for saying. Yet some of these services have had just as much trouble securing their keys. Many of the largest Bitcoin exchanges over the years, including the one-time well-known exchange Mt. Gox, have lost private keys or had them stolen. There's a lot of instances of this. There's another instance of, I forget the name of it, but there was that Canadian Bitcoin exchange where the owner, I don't know if he's ever surfaced, but essentially he faked his own death in India, bought a death certificate, and said that he died, when in reality he just ran off with everybody's Bitcoin. Moving back to the article, Gabriel Abed, 34, an entrepreneur from Barbados, lost around 800 Bitcoins, now worth around 25 million, when a colleague reformatted a laptop that contained the private keys to a Bitcoin wallet in 2011. Mr. Abed said this did not dim his enthusiasm. Before Bitcoin, he said he and his fellow islanders had not been able to access affordable digital financial products like the credit cards and bank accounts that are easily available to Americans. In Barbados, even getting a PayPal account was almost impossible, he said. The open nature of Bitcoin, he said, gave him full access to the digital financial world for the first time. And this is one of the great things about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I don't know if this stat is still accurate, but not that long ago, there was a statistic that like 94% of the world was unbanked. You know, if you're living in the Western world or first world countries, the U.S., Canada, Australia, Europe, you're kind of spoiled in the amount of financial products you have at your disposal. But if you're in Africa or poorer parts of Southeast Asia, you know, a lot of people don't have bank accounts. They're unbanked. They don't have credit cards. And so that's one of the amazing things about cryptocurrency is it brings the world of finance to them. There's no gatekeepers. There's nobody who can tell them that they can't have a PayPal account. Anybody can have a Bitcoin or pretty much any other cryptocurrency account. The risk of being my own bank comes with the reward of being able to freely access my money and be a citizen of the world. That is worth it, Mr. Abed said. For Abed and Mr. Thomas, any losses from mishandling the private keys have partly been assuaged by the enormous gains they have made on Bitcoin they managed to hold on to. The 800 Bitcoin Mr. Abed lost in 2011 were only a fraction of the tokens he has since bought and sold, allowing him to recently buy a 100-acre plot of oceanfront land in Barbados for over $25 million. Mr. Thomas said he also managed to hold on to enough Bitcoin and remember the passwords to give him more riches than he knows what to do with. In 2012, he joined the cryptocurrency startup Ripple that aimed to improve on Bitcoin. He was rewarded with Ripple's own native currency known as XRP, which rose in value. And I was just going to bring into this, but the article touches on it. Ripple has recently run into its own legal troubles, in part because the founders had too much control over the creation and distribution of XRP coins. As for his lost password and inaccessible Bitcoin, Mr. Thomas has put the iron key in a secure facility, he won't say where, in case cryptographers come up with a new way of cracking complex passwords. Keeping it far away helps him not think about it, he said. I got to a point where I said to myself, let it be in the past, just for your own mental health, he said. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that story. I've been making videos and reading for way too long, so I'm just going to cut this one short. But let me know your thoughts. If you guys have any funny or sad stories about losing cryptocurrency, locking yourself out of accounts, etc., feel free to drop it down below and share it with us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below and ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.